Of our many wonderful speakers with the Nonprofit Productivity Summit, you will find very few who communicate more effectively than Rachel Bearbower. She is the head of small shop strategies. She is so good at what she does. If you follow her on any of the social networks, you'll immediately get to see that she's a real person who's done the executive director role in her life. And now she really feels called to give back and to raise up other executive directors. So Rachel, just want to welcome you to the summit. And what would you add to that introduction?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Mike. It's an honor to be here talking about one of my favorite topics. But you nailed it. I feel like I've lived a lot of lives. I've done a lot of cool things, but I really do feel like the work that I'm doing right now is what I was meant to be doing.
And small shop strategies.
Yeah, don't say it 3 times fast. You won't be able to.
Give us a sense of the particular kind of nonprofit that you have really honed in on.
Yeah, so I work primarily with small shops. So I don't know if small shop was like, I know it was a small shop business, but like in nonprofit, I feel like I coined the I'm looking for you, small shop. But it's anyone who considers themselves a small shop, and that is a range. That's anywhere from the executive director who is an all volunteer board, they're volunteer, and they're just out there moving their mission. And then there's also I work with organizations that have 10, 20, 50 people, but they feel small in their in how they operate. And so I think we can all learn from each other and learn from how to continue to just do better, make our lives a little bit easier. But I focus primarily on the small shop executive directors. That's who I like to hang out with.
And I mean, that resonates with me personally, because for my quote unquote day job, we are a small shop, but also I've been able to connect you with some other small shops of, missions and ministries out there who started just on the passion of a young person. And then that young person grows up and there's still a mission and they're not sure what to do with it. So I think you have just a wonderful niche within the nonprofit space. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that's really provocative, but I think needs to be addressed. It's an important one, and that's toxic productivity. I feel like I should play like some, I don't know, deep organ music in the background, like ooh, toxic productivity. But what do you mean when you talk about that phrase, toxic productivity?
I think that some people have this idea when, you say productivity, like they just cringe, or they're just like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't add one more thing to my plate. You've got to be joking. And I hear you. I get that. But I think it's actually, it's rooted a lot deeper. Like, I think recently we've, start your morning routine and do this, here's how to time block here. But if we peel back the layers of it, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can be productive, but everyone's different. But taking that step back, looking at our industry as a whole, there's this idea that you go into nonprofit work, you make very little money, you have to beg, borrow, and steal to make, ends meet. You are constantly in this just rat race of reaching out to donors, thanking donors, doing your program. You're all over the place and working an obscene number of hours. You still don't have everything that you need to meet your basic needs. And then people are like, don't really want to fund the overhead. You're just like, come on now. How is that okay? So I think that I really understood that at a very deep level as an executive director who worked 2 full-time jobs. One is my ED, where I didn't get paid for a long time, and one is just like a real full-time job because I had to pay my bills. And that over time, that does a number on someone, and I will be the first one to admit I've got a podcast about it, but I hit burnout big time.
What is it? Yeah, and I can relate. I mean, I don't think I hit burnout, but I was really close to it, and I probably had lunch with burnout once a week about 6 years ago, and I knew I needed to make a change. What does it look like? What are some of the signs of burnout?
It can be everything from lack of focus to just utter exhaustion. It can be losing passion in what you're doing. Um, I think it's a little bit different for everyone. For me, I had a lot of health issues, a lot of, really just not good stuff happening. And really, it came down to that. I had just been so stressed and so tired and so depleted of everything from like nutrients to sleep to water. Like I was so depleted that my body, my organs, my hormones were just like, nah, I'm out. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And most of the organizations that come to me because they are burned out. And while I do like to give, well, you could try these things and here's some ways to set goals, like I have real conversations with you being like, how's your health? Are you getting enough water? Are you eating nutritious food? Are you sleeping reasonable hours? Like those are the things that we need to be talking to each other about. So
yeah, those are really serious. So what do you think, Rachel? What feeds this idea of toxic productivity? Is it the for-profit space that sort of creeps into nonprofit? Are we to blame? I mean, are we part of the problem? Is it that between social media and everything else, we're just so addicted to the quick wins that we're not really willing to put in the time to do some of these kind of longer term gains? What do you think?
I think there's a lot of things feeding into it. I think you're right on about social media. There's a lot of like, kind of that, oh, well, the organization across the street is doing this, we should do this. And, jumping back and forth between projects because you think it's going to raise you more money or help you in whatever way. But I think it's also just it goes back to this idea of like perfectionism, which, for those of you that are doing your DEI work, know that is a root of white supremacy. And that is something that in the culture of our nonprofits, it's this idea of like always giving, always serving, always supporting. And at the end of the day, like you're still a human, you still have your basic needs. And so I think there's those like societal things, but then I also think internally, we wear this like badge of honor of like, oh, pulled an all-nighter to make sure that, the gala went off without a hitch. And I say that as somebody who pulled several, planning galas, like, and you kind of wear it as a badge of honor. Like that is not a badge of honor that we should be celebrating. And so it's something I think that the entire industry, I think, so to anyone out there, I don't know about you, but like pre-pandemic, like I was a machine. I could get so much done. And after 2 years of chaos, I'm tired. I'm really tired. And I just do not produce as much as I used to. And I think that's okay. And I think a lot of people are in that boat. And I think that as employers, as, colleagues, as board members, I think we need to recognize that what maybe we were able to do pre-pandemic is not going to be what we're able to do now, and being okay with that.
I was going to ask you, so how do you think COVID has changed the expectations for nonprofit leaders, the daily demand, the grind for nonprofit leaders? I mean, I know for me, I work from home and I don't see myself ever going back to kind of a traditional setting. And
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that. There's been a lot of gains from that, but there are probably other things too, right? Like, what else do you think has changed for nonprofit leaders as a result of COVID?
So, oh gosh, there's so many things. I really feel for the organizations that, just before the pandemic hit, or like, had a huge event planned in like April, and had to quickly pivot. And I think that, for so many organizations, they've had to go, um, they've had to adapt, and they've had to, um, it's kind of a sink or swim, and like, have to adapt to some of the technologies, or, get some of those grumpy board members who don't really like to change to be like, all right, we're going to try something new. I know, crazy, try things, new things. Um, so I think there's, I think there's also a lot of opportunity to really, again, kind of going back to, let's look at each individual person on your team and on your staff. And I get that, you can't make exceptions and everything for every single person, but, being understanding, like, let's look at the working mom who's working a full-time job, or the working parents, moms and dads, however your family dynamics look like, you know, if they can work from home so that they don't have to pay for childcare and they're still getting the work done, why not?
Hmm.
Or or at least letting them have flexible hours, or the person who is an extreme introvert, which is me. Like, people don't know that, but I'm an introvert. Hanging out with people exhausts me. I used to go into the office all the time, and I would come home and I was like, this is hard. And I didn't know why my job was so hard. And then I was like, oh my gosh, if I just don't hang out with people, I am way better. Um, so letting people do what's best for their energy. There may be some people who really want to work at the office. Go for it. Like, So I hope that it's opened our eyes to alternatives, that there's, not just one way of doing things. That saying, we've always done it this way. One of those things we've heard,
Mm.
that kills creativity, that kills innovation. And that's one of the coolest things about nonprofits is you have such incredible opportunities to be creative and be innovative. And we sometimes stomp all over that with all of our rules. I don't like rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, especially for the smaller shops. You can change many things, within your
Mhm.
organization. If you're the leader, we had a thing years ago where somebody said, why do we have this particular day off, in our calendar? And I was like, I don't know, and I made a note that the following year we didn't have it, so it was not a big deal. It didn't rock anyone's world, but there's a lot more agency, I think, than a lot of times we think we have. How about the idea of imposter syndrome? You mentioned, like, I see the other nonprofit over there and they just got $1 million grant, or I see that ED and he or she has their own podcast, and I'm just, chopping wood, doing my thing here at my little shop. What do you say to that, to kind of build up the executive director who maybe has a little bit of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, as a girl whose chore growing up was splitting wood, that's still hard work. And each one of us is doing our own version of the best that we can. And okay, let's see if I can remember this quote. So a gal named Denise Jacobs, who I think is just one of the smartest people, she said something that you can't have imposter syndrome if you're doing something. Like, if you're out there doing the grind, if you're putting in the work, putting in the effort, like, there's no reason that you should have imposter syndrome. And I think that goes back to, something that Brene Brown has said, in that, getting in the arena, like, do not let anyone judge you who is not in the arena with you. And 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 I say that as somebody who, looks at the the business next door, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're doing all these cool things. It's hard not to compare. We do live in a world that comparison is a thing, but taking that step back and like, just why don't you just write down like 10 wins that you just had and look back and be like, oh yeah, no, I'm awesome. I'm totally awesome.
Hey, and if you're on this summit, we want you to feel that way because we know the power of nonprofits. And next time you're on a plane or you're traveling somewhere and the person next to you says, "Hey, what do you do?" Instead of the old, "Oh, I'm working a nonprofit," put your chin up and say, "I get to change the world. I
Yeah,
work in a nonprofit," And so some of that's
absolutely.
even for ourselves. We got to encourage each other that we're professionals. Our hours might be unusual, they might be regular. I don't know, but we're professional and we've got to really lean into that. Like, and I love, a lot of the work of Brene Brown, that idea that you got to go for it,
Mhm.
and you're not going to accomplish anything if you're just kind of like, oh, woe is me. And if you don't like working in a nonprofit, you don't have to,
Yeah.
So as long as we're choosing it, we might as well really make it great. Rachel, what's a day in the life like for you? You've got a growing firm, you're doing all kinds of different things. What's productivity look like for you on any given day?
Oh my gosh. Great question. So I feel like, it's something that I don't know if we talk about enough is that and something that I'm really working through is, so I used to live in Washington State. I I built my entire year around having summers like as open as possible so that I could go climb mountains and go trail running and just spend as much of my time in the woods. Okay. So now I've moved to Iowa. I live on a farm, and planting and harvest, spring and fall, are two times that are incredibly important and that I have to give my focus to. So really taking note of like your seasons, where what are you gearing up towards? When can you take downtime? Like for now, winter time and a little bit of summer is really my downtime, um, where I'm really like things are ramped up, and in the fall we're just finishing harvest. It's like I feel like I'm coming down off a mountain. Um, but back to your question of like, what does a productive day look like for me? I mean, there's a thousand things. I think the chance to just like sit and do big think work, um, are some of my favorite days when I don't have meetings. I close my email, I turn off my Slack, and I just like am able to really think. Now, is every day like that? Absolutely not. I teach about how to time block and how to, be in your email. And I wake up and I check my email. Yeah, I do all the things I tell you not to do. But those days when I can really just like sit, do that big thing, and then close my computer and feel good about what I accomplished, um, that's huge.
We were giving our a 10-year-old a hard time because he kept going at Fortnite, and we would go out and run errands, and we'd come home and he'd go right back to Fortnite, and we had to check ourselves as parents and say, well, we're actually doing the exact same thing, but with email, with Slack, things like that. So we kind of leaned off a little bit. How do you practice some self-control with email and Slack?
Oh, I'm all about intention. So, if you are heading into your email, like what are you doing? Are you responding? Are you replying? That's the same thing. Are you replying? Are you archiving? Are you deleting? Like, what is the intention with your email? And I snooze a lot of emails just to get them like out of there. So I'm not like checking. So I'll snooze an email and get it out of there. Slack is where my community is. So I am on Slack a lot, but again, I'm really um, deliberate and intentional about my time. I don't have notifications on. So I don't have notifications for Slack, for email, for social, for like anything you can have your phone on for. I get phone calls, and text messages, but my phone's off. So if I'm not like actually looking at it, you're going to hear from me in a little bit. Um, so I think that that's been, you know, just being intentional about what I'm doing. I try really hard not to just do that like aimless scroll, but I go into my, my social media with intention, like, okay, I'm going on to like post a story or, make a post. I don't go on to like look for inspiration, because then you end up on like some random, deep dark hole of the internet that,
Yeah,
so.
we want to avoid those deep dark holes. But you mentioned Slack. Could you recommend to other folks maybe one or two other key tools that you are personally using to keep yourself productive?
Yeah. Okay. So I love Slack, but big thing about that is, especially if you're working with a team, it's great for like the quick chatter, or like, hey, have you, made, the edits to our appeal, or did you see that email went out? That's great. But I really try to avoid assigning work in there. So if you're working with a big team, that's great, because that takes a lot of that like back and forth email out of your email and into a channel where you can have kind of more of that informal conversation, which is great for the virtual teams. But I really do try, if I am assigning something, it's assigning it in Asana, which is the project manager. There's a million of them. I chose Asana. And so really keeping email, Slack, and Asana kind of each have their own role. But I use a social media scheduler. So for all of my social media, it's usually coming from past Rachel. So thanks to her. I do, of course, my stories are real time. But one of the core things that I teach is how to automate things, because some things are really like, they're easy to automate, their system building, their processes don't take a lot of time, or take a lot of time because you don't have something set up. But then there's things like relationship building, and that is like, that's not simple. That's not something that you can automate or systematize. So I really try to spend as much time as I can automating and systematizing everything I do in my business and my work and my life, so that I can spend time on that relationship building, which is what's most important, what's most meaningful. So
I think a lot of people would probably be surprised to hear that you're an introvert. And
I know.
As an introvert myself, I tell people I fake it during the day and then I kind of pass out at night. But such is life. I've heard from different nonprofit leaders who say, I don't know how to approach social media. Do I do LinkedIn and Snapchat and Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram? I'm just overwhelmed. And so you are probably, of all the speakers at the summit, I think you're probably the most well-versed at really telling your story and building a brand around you and your personality. But speak to the nonprofit leader who just looks at social media and they're like, I can't,
Yeah.
I'm over 30. I don't do that anymore. I just don't know where to even start. So what would you say to that?
Oh gosh. Well, I think that stepping back and being like, why can't you do it? And it could be for a really valid reason. Like, I'm a mom of 5 and doing this, and like, I have more loads of laundry than I can handle. Like, don't make me do social media as well. So I get that, like, everybody is coming from a different place, but like, take that step back. Like, are you not able to do it because you're spending so much time doing some other task that isn't necessarily moving the needle in your organization? And so you need to figure out a plan for that so that you can step into something else. I think, I think social media is fantastic and it's an incredible tool for organizations, but it's not the only tool. I think it's a great opportunity to, just as you were saying, kind of just share who you are and kind of the behind the scenes, but finding what works for you. So if you like, pick the platform you enjoy. I like Instagram. That's, I like, it's who I am. So I do Instagram. Should I be on LinkedIn more? Yeah, absolutely. Should I be doing other things? Yeah, there's always a million and one things that you can be doing, but pick what you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're going to work a little harder. I think I have like 12 followers on Twitter because I never go on there. I go on there to look at race results and like sometimes like do a few likes, but like Twitter's not my jam. Like there's a lot of good stuff on there, but it's just I don't have the energy. I do as much LinkedIn as I can, but I'm gonna give like a little like pro tip out here. Where you want to be spending your time is Pinterest. One, excellent recipes, but two, it's a search engine. Okay. So if somebody is out there looking for, how to like, what should they put into a bag for, someone who is experiencing homelessness? Okay. They're going to go to Pinterest and they're going to look at, somebody's written a blog about that. Somebody has a list, a checklist out there somewhere. So you're an organization and you can provide some value. Pinterest is a really great place to go. But I do want organizations also to step away from the idea that you have to be on social media. I mean, it's okay if you're not. But if you do, be there, show your personality, right. Get on video, talk about what it's really like in your organization and the people or the animals that you are serving and how you're making that impact. Share those stories.
And I think your advice is consistent with this idea of let's take a stand against toxic productivity. You can't do it all. You don't need to do it all. Your board is not going to judge you based on the number of tweets you send out. It really is about relationships. And like you're saying, being intentional and choosing one or two, or if you can do 3 social networks, great. But it's okay to do 1 or 2 really, really well. I was on a website the other day of a group of obscure nuns. I don't even remember what state. They were building a new structure and all this. And they had this beautiful line and it said, we're sorry we don't spend more time online because we're just trying to live together and do our thing. And I thought that was just fantastic. And it made a tremendous statement that they were just saying, look, we know a website's important. We have one. It's nice. We post pictures. But the bulk of our time is going to be person-to-person mission. And I think that's okay. So Rachel, you've been so generous with your time and your expertise. I just want to make sure we have a chance to promote a resource of yours through Small Shop Strategies. You have a lot of different resources to help executive directors and leaders, and just want to make sure you have that space to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you one of those tools that I like as an executive director. I had this like written out, scribbled, like, it was a note page in my book for years and years and years. And it's a thank you note template. I used it all the time because, okay, I got this idea from a friend who we nicknamed the corresponding secretary because she was always so good at sending birthday cards. I was like, what is your secret? And she's like, well, I get the cards and then I copy down the words inside. And I was like, that's brilliant. So what I've done is I've taken just a whole bunch of first lines for you to write a really great thank you note, because I know that especially this time of year when, you've got those donations are coming in, you're writing a lot of thank you notes. So this is just it's one of those quick wins. Total bonus points if you go into your Gmail and you kind of write a couple of the first lines and save it as a template. So then it makes it even faster for you to get those thank you notes out and get them. I know we all want to take time and share gratitude, but sometimes it's a lot and it's hard, and especially when you've got a stack, super high. So you can head to my website. It's smallshopstrategies.com/free thank you. So yeah, go there, learn learn about the template. You'll get some emails from me. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, on that note, thank you, Rachel. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome.